Welcome. My name's Kyle Verge. I'm from the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks, and today we're talking about ACEnet's Shared Use Kitchen. Particularly, we're going to go through what exactly it is and why it might be beneficial to your food-based business. Alright, we'll start with ACEnet's mission. If you don't know, the mission of ACEnet is to grow the regional economy by supporting entrepreneurs and strengthening economic sectors. One of the ways to strengthen economic sectors is to improve the capacity of food-based entrepreneurs. So by supporting entrepreneurs through our kitchen, we are in fact strengthening the economic sectors. So today we'll talk about some of the ways that we can support entrepreneurs in that way. We'll start off by talking about ACEnet's Kitchen. So why might anyone need ACEnet's Kitchen? Well, if you're selling food in Ohio, you need a license to do so unless you qualify as a Cottage Food. You might also want to network with other food producers. A lot of people use ACEnet's Kitchen and gain access to a lot of people with expertise and experience in these matters. You also gain access to things that you might not be able to have at home. For example, commercial coolers and freezers. You might also gain access to machines, dry storage, and packaging. So maybe you don't want to fill up your whole garage with dried beans. Well, you can fill up our garage. And maybe you don't know too much about packaging. Well, you can use our experts to learn more. Finally, you get help with labeling, testing, and licensing. All these things are important to retail success for your food-based business, so it's important to make sure that those things are done right. Now, you're probably wondering who this man is over here. Now, this is Adam Cody. He's our Food Enterprise Coordinator, and he is an expert in all of these things. In fact, I've included a link to his email here, so if you're looking at our PowerPoint presentation, you'll be able to click on this link and email him to get all your questions answered. So I promised that we'd go over a little bit about cottage food before we got too much into our kitchen. A lot of people that want to start up their food-based business are unsure of whether or not they need a license. And we know that the state of Ohio is pretty helpful in explaining this to us. They say a cottage food production is defined in Ohio Revised Code to mean a person who in the person's home produces food items that are not potentially hazardous, including bakery items, jams, jellies, candy, fruit, butter, and similar products in specified rules. These foods must be labeled properly or they will be considered misbranded or adulterated, which can come with fines and various things that you don't want. Home means the primary residence occupied by the resident owner on the condition that the residence contains only one stove or oven used for cooking, which may be a double oven, etc., etc. The idea here is that you can produce some things at home without a license. However, most things that you'll produce, and this is not by any means a complete list, but it does give you a good idea of the things that you can produce at home without needing ACEnet's help. However, this does get complicated. So let's say, for example, we see here that dry tea blends, well, those can be allowed under Ohio Cottage Food Law, but if you were to ship them to West Virginia or any other state because maybe you wanted an online tea business, well, that's going to require some licensing. So cottage food law in Ohio is important to know, but it can get quite complicated, and so it's important to consult with experts surrounding that. If you're interested in learning more and you want to look at the regulations in more detail, you can click on this link here if you have our PowerPoint presentation, and it'll take you right to that list. Now, the other thing you want to be aware of is if you qualify as a home bakery. So in some instances, you'll be allowed to bake your goods from home, but they must qualify through all the regulations that the state has. Otherwise, you'll need to come someplace like ACEnet and do your baking there. So you can see in this slide that they give exact definitions of what it takes to be a home bakery, and it also says that the state will need to come into your home and make sure that you're not doing some things that are disallowed through that. So, for example, in this last one here, it says, does my home kitchen meet the requirements of a home bakery license? So it says the household kitchen must have walls, ceiling, floors that are in good repair, clean, and easily cleanable. The kitchen may not have carpeted floors, must be free of pests. No pets are permitted in the home at all, and the kitchen must be maintained in a sanitary condition, etc., etc. So you can read these regulations in more detail, but if you do have a dog at home, a cat at home, maybe a pet raccoon, those things cannot be there if you want to get licensed through the state. So if you have a cat or a dog that really just can't live anywhere else, you're going to have to come into ACEnet to make sure that you can be licensed as a bakery and do some of your business that way. So, if you remember from my description of cottage foods, I think cottage foods must be non-potentially hazardous. And if you are a potentially hazardous food, this is the specific definition of that. So ACEnet has what's called a thermal processing room, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But the important point is that we're really familiar with getting foods to be shelf stable. So we know what it takes to do small batch testing, pH testing, thermal processing, and you can see that one of our tenants, Milo's Whole World Gourmet, is a veritable expert on this. They've bottled a lot of things that you see here, actually all the things that you see here, and this is from Kroger. So they're able at ACEnet to make their product shelf stable for both shipping and for retail use. And so again, we have all the capacity to do the pH testing and really make sure that your food can be shelf stable. So what are the other benefits to the Food Venture Center or the shared use kitchen? Well, we do, like I mentioned before, have small batch testing. Now, what does that mean? This means that we give food business owners the opportunity to fine-tune and perfect their products in lower quantities, which results in less waste before scaling up. So let's say that you had a famous barbecue sauce recipe and you knew this thing frontwards and backwards, and you've made it a million times for your family. Well, if you came into ACEnet and made 30 gallons of it or 50 gallons of it, you might find out something that you weren't expecting, that maybe the ways that in which it's bottled has sort of changed how the product results. So doing small batch testing at ACEnet can really give you a leg up and save you a lot of money. We also do pH analysis. So this allows us to determine whether or not certain products will be deemed shelf stable by the process authority, ensuring the safety and retail readiness of a product. In-house pH analysis is conducted prior to the product being sent off to the process authority for final testing, which can help you avoid paying for multiple tests. So again, this is another thing that has to do with all of the hoops that you need to jump through to make sure that your food is in fact non-hazardous. But again, we have a lot of experience helping with that. As I mentioned previously, Adam Cody is certified, and so he can help you with that pH analysis and get everything ready to go. Finally, labeling is really important regardless if you're a cottage food or not. So you're going to have to, everyone's familiar with these little nutritional facts over here. We are pretty experienced in creating those little nutrition labels for you. We know how big they need to be for the size of the product. We can put everything on there that you need, and we can get you ready for retail and sale. So what is the Incubator Kitchen and what does it look like? You can see from this picture here that the Incubator Kitchen is really just a giant shared space. So it has lots of tables, it's got a lot of cooking equipment. You can see here this looks like a pasta maker. There's various things that in the kitchen that would cost you a tremendous amount of money if were you to buy all those things yourself. And you can see a lot of different people use them. We do keep the kitchen open 24 hours, so if you are perhaps a baker or perhaps a night owl in general, you can come and work overnight and have the whole kitchen to yourself, so it's a pretty good deal there. And then this space also offers you the opportunity to work with your team. So let's say your family is making that favorite barbecue sauce that you have, and you want to bring them in together and make sure that everyone knows that recipe, make sure that everything's tasting perfect, well, the kitchen's big enough to accommodate that. So it's a great place to brainstorm and refine methods. Now, I mentioned before that ACEnet has a ton of equipment that would be available to your use. You can find this equipment on the web page, so if I'm going too fast here, don't worry, you can go back and look over that at your leisure. But suffice to say, there's a lot of stuff here that, again, will cost you a ton of money where you had to buy it all yourself. And we also offer things like a dry packing room with vacuum sealers. So, for example, if you were doing something like a vegan bacon, you could package that product there and make it ready for sale. Right, so we also have dry storage at the Athens location. We offer two types of dried storage. You can see here that this one is obviously locked. Now you can keep your stuff locked to make sure that your recipes are safe. You want to keep your specialized pans from getting dirty, or let's say you have some particularly expensive ingredients. Various things you might want to keep locked up, keep safe, all sorts of things like that. We do offer those lock cages, but then we also offer just unlocked storage. So let's say you might have 50 gallons of cooking oil and you're like, well, I certainly can't keep that in my trunk. Well, here you go. You can rent by the pallet or half pallet and keep all of your bulk ingredients together, make for easy scaling, and save a lot of money on buying in bulk. All right, so we got a bunch of ovens at ACEnet. So if you were a baker, this man here is from Crumbs, so you could bake all of your goods here, and you could see how all the things that ACEnet offers are sort of related to one another. So if you were to do this in your home, you probably couldn't cook, I don't know, 20 loaves. But here you have access to dry and cold storage. So as I said, if you have a giant amount of flour that you might need, you can dump that in our commercial mixers, which is going to help, get all that dough together. Then you can take it to our convection ovens so that they could bake all at the same time. You'll have access to the cooling racks. You'll have access to packaging and labeling, so you can take your goods directly from the cooling racks, pack them, label them, and then bring them to your retail locations, be it Siemens, Kroger, anywhere that you might be selling your bread. So it's an awfully good deal there. Okay, so food trucks. So food trucks are also important to the Athens community and in general. And it is true that there are some licensing and regulations that food trucks must abide by, and so they oftentimes will use ACEnet's Kitchen to do so. So we've worked hand in hand with the city on local code enforcement to make sure these businesses have many opportunities as they can to set up shop. Typically, they will utilize a shared use kitchen for food prep storage if the space exists to park their trucks when not in use. Now, this can be pretty helpful for a food truck because you certainly don't want to be carrying around all of your product. I mean, what if something went wrong? So ACEnet offers you the ability to store some of that product, and each and every food truck is required to have their truck inspected independently and must have their own mobile vending license acquired through the Board of Health. So we can help you also with how to go about that process and to make sure that everything's set up so that you don't waste your valuable time and money. All right, so I mentioned before shelf-stable products that you might want to sell, be they barbecue sauce or jams, jellies, things like that. We have a thermal processing and bottling room, which is amazing. So let's say you wanted to make, 50 gallons of salad dressing, package it all up, and then get it ready for sale. Well, you could do it all in one go. So you can see that we updated the thermal processing space to put in these gigantic kettles. And you can also see that there is a conveyor belt here. So when the product is moved from the kettles via a pump to this conveyor belt, it will take essentially your product and make it ready for retail sale. It's kind of fun to watch this. If you ever want to see the thermal processing and bottling room in action, you can contact Adam Cody and he'd be happy to show you around. It's really a neat process. It's really loud, but awfully cool. All right, so let's say you went through this whole process. There's various businesses in Athens who have done this. You can, at the end of it, they have their products ready for retail. So you can see here, Frog Ranch Salsa is a really good one. They got their start at ACEnet, and you can also see Shagbark corn maze tortilla chips, also one of my favorites. They also got their start here at ACEnet. Pork and pickles, they do delicious vegetable pickling and cooking in general. Well, they do a lot of amazing things, but suffice to say they got their start there too. And then finally, Crumb's Bakery. They've been an anchor tenant for around 20 years, but they keep inventing new things. You can see here's their spelt crackers, which they do entirely in that shared use kitchen. And you can see now that all these goods are available wherever fine goods are sold. Kindred, Kroger, the Athens Farmers Market, perhaps the Pharmacy, Emporium, Columbus, and beyond. Well, it looks like I spelled the pharmacy wrong, but you get the idea. Finally, if you have any questions, I've linked to Adam Cody's email in the early slides. You can also email info@acenetworks.org. That goes to my email address, Kyle Burge. And if you have questions, you can call us here. You can find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram, or finally on the web in general. All right, thanks for listening.